coming to you live from the City of Angels, Los Angeles, California. It's the Sheena Metal Experience with your host, Sheena Metal.
Hi, and welcome to the Sheena Metal Experience, only on Parapod TV. I'm your host, Sheena Metal. I'm a psychic medium. I'm an energetic healer. I'm an interfaith minister. I'm a 29-year talk radio host in Los Angeles and beyond. I'm a creative and a performing artist and a paranormal survivor. And I come to you live from my home in Southern California every Wednesday at 3 o'clock Pacific time. This show is about spirituality. It's about creativity. It's about humanity. It's about passion. It's about service. It's about becoming and then maintaining your best you in this big, beautiful world. And then most importantly, inspiring others to do the same. And it may be my show. It is the Sheena Metal Experience after all, but that doesn't mean it's not always and forever your experience. My guests today are both very dear friends. They have both been on the show many times. She is a paranormal survivor. He is a paranormal documentarian, amongst other things. And they are currently working on a video project about her story. And I am and their story, because they're in each other's lives as partners. And I'm so honored too that I just shot a night to be a part of it in their home with all of the haunted stuff. So please welcome to the show my friends Conrad and Melodie Brookman. Welcome, both of you. How are you?
Fine. How are you?
Great. Thank you, Sheena. Glad to be here.
Last time I saw your faces, I was sitting right there.
You were. Right by the fireplace.
Right where you are now, in front of the fireplace.
Same place.
Boy, what a story the two of you have. And I mean, Barry, you've been chasing the supernatural your whole life. But to meet Melodie and then to discover that she too is plagued by spirit attachments. And we discovered the night that I was there, right, that there are 3 very prominent spirit attachments in Melodie's life. Plus you have 2 very prominent ghosts from the neighborhood that wander in and stay in your house and try to sleep in your bed. There's a lot that goes on there, and you've captured a lot inside the house. And you've captured a lot working with spiritual practitioners. And we captured a lot that night, a lot of pendulum stuff. And I mean, just insanity. So, where are you at, Barry, with telling Melodie's story? And when did you decide this was a story that had to be told on camera?
Really, I think the first time I met Melodie, I realized something was going on. She had a very sincere quality about her. And I remember her actually almost tearing up at one point, the first time I met her. I was with Stefan Brigatti, who's a paranormal researcher here. You know Stefan.
Well, friend, yes.
And he brought me into the situation, and I was very impressed with her case, and as well as her as a person. But she was very sincere. It was a sincerity thing. And of course, we started dating, and little I know later on, when she moved in here in my home, that the house now would be haunted. So this is kind of a, you remember the old show with Paladin? It was Richard Boone. It was called Have Gun Will Travel.
Yes, exactly.
It's now become I Have Ghost Will Travel.
Exactly. Well, some girls move in and bring their children, and Melodie brought her horrifying spirit attachments with her.
That's correct. That's correct. It's been an amazing adventure, and it's so different than a lot of the other cases that I've worked on. As you know, I did the San Pedro haunting years ago. And that was a phenomenal case. It actually hanged my assistant in an attic, almost killed him. Fortunately, it brought him down from the attic after one of my assistants was able to get him down. It happened very quickly. But I guess the only thing I can think of that reminds me of her case, I did a show. It's streaming now on Amazon Prime and Tubi. It's called California's Most Haunted. And I did a show because I knew Dr. Barry Taff for a while. We worked together, and I knew all about the entity. And he and Carrie Gaynor from UCLA had investigated that case. Thelma Moss, who was the head of that neuropsychiatric department that handled parapsychology. She was also there at certain times. But Frank, who I interviewed, Frank De Filita, he was the guy who wrote the book, and then eventually he wrote the screenplay that became a fascinating movie with Barbara Hershey. Came out in 83.
Right. Way before films like that really came out. It was one of the first.
Absolutely. I was unable to get Barbara Hershey to do the show. I talked to her agent, but I think she just wanted to kind of lay low at the time about that. I think she's considered that role maybe a little misogynistic or something. I'm not sure what the psychological reasoning was. But Frank, I've been over to his house many times, Frank De Filita, and he told it to me straight. He goes, look, we saw things that were unbelievable. And actually an entity of a ghost appeared right in front of he and I think 10 other people. There were other students there. A guy named Mort Zarkov, who I believe has passed on also as well. He's the one that photographed the famous arcs of light over the woman in the bedroom, Doris Bider. Well, that case is the only thing I can think of offhand. I'm sure there are other cases that remind me of Melodie's case.
Yes.
The fact where, she's had these physical attacks, and it's been a scary thing for her. I got to give Melodie credit. She's a very not only brave woman, but she's very strong to have endured all of these things that have happened. And I have photographed, as you can see, when you saw the videotape here at the home, some of these actual spectral attacks on her at night, because we have a monitor that we keep in my office. So occasionally I can check up on the IR camera up there. We have IR cameras that she put up all over the place and outside. And one night I'm sitting at my desk, and I sort of took a look at, glanced over my shoulder at the monitor, and I saw this huge balls of light moving through the room, and I saw the blankets on top of her starting to pulsate, like there was some living thing on top of her, or coming. She says it comes from below the mattress, and then moves on to the top, I guess, and puts pressure on her, and you can see the whole thing on camera, as well as multiple enigmatic lights moving around the room and all of those kinds of things. We have many of these lights recorded. And so it was just phenomenal. And it was such a, heartbreaking thing to see this happening to her. I remember very quickly trying to get a battery into my camera that night because the battery had gone out. And I ran and got a battery real quick, and I knew I had only one chance to get that on camera. As a documentarian, I felt that was very important. So when I asked her, I guess you can ask her what I told her, or what I woke her up in the middle of her sleep. Actually, she was half asleep when this was all going on, and it was really startling. I don't think she quite understood what I was asking her. I wanted to make sure this wasn't something she could have been doing in her sleep or something. But as you can see, it's some kind of external force operating outside of the realm of this plane of existence that is affecting her.
Yeah. That's going to be one of the high parts, I think, of the documentary is seeing that. And the interesting thing is that you have this little dog, and he's a hyper high-strung little guy. I mean, you can't even pet him because he bites, but yet he sleeps through every bit of that activity. So, if that was earthbound activity, he would be up and barking and trying to attack whatever it is. But for some reason, when we have spirit activity, I think more famously, we know when people come and they're abducted by off-worlders, right? About UFO abductions, oftentimes there's somebody sleeping right in the bed next to them, and they don't even notice it because they energetically focus on you, and you're the one they're after, and your little guy and all that footage. I mean, if nothing else, it's pure comedy. He sleeps right through all this horrifying stuff that's happening. And he doesn't even move because for whatever reason, those spirits, they're off of his radar, right? They don't want to mess with him. So he does not see or feel them at all. And I know it seems impossible. People always say, how did you get abducted when your husband was sleeping right next to you? Well, watch this footage and watch that little dude passed out while the mattress is bumping and jumping around, and he's not even waking up. And he's an excitable little guy. So I think that's a very interesting phenomenon. I think we still don't really understand energetically how they do that. We only know that there's so many reported cases of it that they do that. And I find this to be very much like the entity case and not that much different than the San Pedro case, in the sense that, these are spirits that are attacking a person. And I think, although entity in San Pedro, I think we're a singular entity pretty much. This is this little, group of shit stirrers, for lack of a better word, who kind of are banding together like a little group of bullies to tear Melodie down. And I've committed myself now to doing everything I can to stop them, because we just need to say no to ridiculousness like this from the dark. I mean, we need to just, at some point, we need to starve the dark and just say no to darkness. And Melodie, you're doing such a beautiful job of getting control of this. So where are you at now? How are you feeling about it now? Because it seems like it has gotten better, right? You've steeled up, you've done a lot of research, you've learned a lot about them, and you're fighting back. And I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that, through the years, like in the beginning, you're not sure what to do, and you're learning about these things that you're living with. And now that I know what they're capable of, and what they can do and what they can't do now, that my conscience is very well learned what they're capable of doing and what they're not capable of doing. And in the beginning, my conscience wasn't all there yet. It was before, it was just me, and now my conscience is caught up, I should say, so that when I'm sleeping, my conscience is like, okay, I'm not going to pay attention to you anymore. And my conscience is like fighting back now. Whereas before, my conscience wasn't really fighting back. But now it's like, hey, I'm not paying attention to you anymore. My conscience is like, I've moved on to other things, And I think that's part of it. I learned to just, ignore it, not to feed it, not to keep feeding them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a real big part of it, Another part of it is, I think, in the beginning, you talk to them, like telepathically, you talk to them because you didn't know what they're about and what they're doing, and then you get in this habit of talking to them all the time, and you have to learn not to talk to them anymore telepathically. And that's really hard to do because, you were doing it for so many years. And so you just have to turn that off and not talk to them, like when you read a book, you read a book silently in your head, you're talking in your head, no one's hearing it, but your head is hearing it, inside. Same thing, how you talk to them, same thing. You have to learn to shut it off and not talk to them that way.
Yeah.
That's when it's difficult, at times it's really difficult because you're trying, I gotta shut that off, Yeah.
Well, I think like any abusive situation, even with a person, right?
Yeah.
It becomes its own kind of toxic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you inadvertently play into it, or argue with them, or try to speak your piece, because that's what you do when you're being attacked. Sometimes people say, well, don't be defensive. Well, I think when something starts attacking you, and especially these three are very verbal, right? So there's a lot of trash talking all the time.
Yeah.
I think it's normal to be like, hey, where you go away. It's normal to fight in the beginning until you realize they're feeding on that. And the best thing to do is ignore. When I was growing up in that extremely haunted house outside of Baltimore as a kid, my mom's biggest mistake was that she argued with it. But, she was a tough Irish chick who survived a lot of things, including being in the adoption system in the Depression. And so when that thing invaded her home, she was like, yelling at it, like, get out, and, calling it an asshole. And she thought she would scare it away by being strong.
Yeah.
But the truth was it loved the attention.
Yeah.
So the more she fought with it, the more it came around. So she became the one in the home that was very targeted because she was the one arguing with it all the time. And we're now just learning that they function very much like a narcissistic human in the sense that they don't know the difference in good attention and bad attention. And anytime you give them attention, you're feeding them and giving them an incentive to come around more. And even with spirits that aren't malevolent, sometimes they're just needy and, they find me and they want attention and they want this and they want that. And at some point I have to say in a very nice way, look, when your loved ones here need to contact you, I'll be in touch, but I don't want to have a communication with you all the time. And I wish you well. And then you literally have to cut them off because otherwise they'll just follow you around asking questions and telling you how sad they are. And it's like, I don't have all day for this. Yeah. And you have to set boundaries. And I think even with spirits that are well-intentioned, just a little lonely, you need to set boundaries, as you do sometimes with people that are like that. But with these ones that are very malevolent, you just need to tell them, I'm not having any further communication with you. Yes. And then you just shut the switch off on your end. Does it make them go away 100%? Well, no, but it will diminish them, right?
Yes. Yeah. You just can't feed it. Yeah. It's the same thing. Like people always wonder, well, why isn't God listening to me? Or Jesus, or it's the same thing. It's like, and then they get angry and it's like, well, they're not going to listen when you're arguing with them. Right. You can't get angry. Yeah. And it's like, they're wondering why something isn't happening. And I'm like, well, you have to calm down and like control yourself,
Yes.
Yeah. Cause it took me years because I would like scream and shout and throw these tantrums. I'm like, why isn't this working? And then I'm like, I just basically, I'm like, all right, I have to just calm myself down and just, just relax. And, things will start happening when they're supposed to happen. But arguing and getting out of control and throwing tantrums is not the answer.
No, so, not at all.
Yeah. So yeah, it's true. Just turn it off and calm down and keep your mind focused on other things. So
Barry, the team that handled the entity case in Culver City, that's the team that the team from the movie Poltergeist was loosely based on them, right?
I'm trying to think now. Poltergeist. I'm not sure if that was the case. I'm trying to think. Poltergeist, was it based on another story? I'm trying to think. There was another place that had a house that was built over a cemetery. I'm just trying to think what that case was.
Right. I remember that case, but I think Poltergeist may have loosely been based on that case too. But
it could be.
The team that came out with the older woman in charge and the two men, that always reminded me of the folks that handled the entity case.
That's right. However, it just came to mind. There was a case that's very similar to that, and it happened in the 80s, around the time that Poltergeist came out. I'm not sure exactly what year that was. Yeah. It was a place called Crosby, Texas. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but there was a family.
Yeah.
They moved into a house. It's right outside of Houston. And they started seeing dark shadows moving down the hallways, and the garage doors would open and close of their own volition.
The toilets would flush.
Of their own volition, that kind of thing, by themselves. And what made that case extreme and very frightening was the fact that one of the main couples that lived in the main house, her name was Ben and Jean Williams. And they had a young daughter, and I think her name was Tina. she wanted to find out, Jean rather, wanted to find out.
They were going to build a swimming pool in the yard.
Well, that was the Haney. The Haneys lived across. They wanted to build a swimming pool. They on the same property. This was a new subdivision.
Yeah.
And the Haneys, another couple, they were trying to build a swimming pool. So they had a backhoe come out. The people started to dig the foundation. And the next day, they started the foundation. The next day, Mrs. Haney's couldn't find her shoes anywhere for work that she normally wore to work. And so they looked all around, looked everywhere. Then they finally looked, I guess her husband looked outside, and there, parked on the hole that had been dug for the swimming pool, were her shoes perched there. And he found out later on that there were graves all over that whole property. But really the frightening thing was that Jean Williams she became familiar with or met someone who had been a grave digger way, way back. And he was very old at the time. He said, well, there's a body buried under the old oak tree in the backyard of your house. And Jean was like, what? And so she started.
It an old slave burial ground, right?
Yes, it was called the Black Hope Cemetery.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so she started digging down to see if there really was a casket or a coffin buried there. And she dug down so far, and then she said, hey, Tina, give me a break. Can you take over a little bit? I'll dig some more. So Tina started digging. Her young daughter, who was, I think, 20, I believe, in her 20s, she was pregnant at the time.
No, she wasn't pregnant.
Was she pregnant?
No, she got sick.
Well, she got sick.
Really sick.
She got really sick. Yeah.
When she hit her shovel hit the casket. There was a casket. As soon as she hit it, she collapsed at the gravesite, and she died, I think, the next day or a couple days later.
Yeah, there was a great TV movie based on that story with Patty Duke.
I believe so.
And that was the first time that I ever saw paralysis, because there's a scene where the husband's in the garage and the invisible thing comes and pins him up against the wall and he can't move. And I had that happen to me all the time in that house. And I had never seen, I didn't even know that was a real thing. I thought it was just something that happened to me. And when I saw that happen to him in that movie, that was when I began to sort of stop ignoring what had happened to us in that house and start investigating what it all meant. Because I was like, oh, that's a thing that happened to somebody else? Because I never occurred to me there was a thing where an invisible force would hold you down and you couldn't move. I thought I was crazy. I had a problem. My puberty gone bad, or whatever the story was. It never occurred to me that was a thing, and that movie really changed my life. And it's a terrifying story because you're right. Her daughter got involved in that, and then she died. And I think that, and you and I have talked about this, Melody, and I think Barry, when talking about San Pedro case, we have too, that there's this whole misnomer that ghosts can't hurt you.
Right.
It's not true. And
it's not true.
We're all living proof of that. I saw a spirit. First of all, I saw my mom in the kitchen standing in front of the dishwasher door that was down. And that thing flew up for no reason, flew upwards hard enough to knock off her kneecap, and she had to have surgery. And when she got home from the surgery, her crutch flew across the room, slammed into her incision, and it opened, and she had to have it redone. And I saw that. And it was because she was yelling at that ghost, you rotten mofo, get out of my house. And it hated her. Yeah. So this idea, I saw cans of like beans and corn like fly out of the cupboard and practically hit us in the head. I mean, you were always like this in the kitchen because you never knew what was next.
Right.
This idea that ghosts can't hurt you. And I only say that not to scare people, but because people are going into these haunted locations to do investigations because they think it's fun. And I get that it can be, but they're not protecting themselves. They're not saying white light protection prayers. They're not wearing talismans. They're not holding crystals. They're not saging themselves before and after. And things are following them home, harming them, doing things to them. You have to be careful. This isn't something to play with. And I always say, because I, grew up in the surf capital of the world, you wouldn't cut your wrist and go in the water and flail around dressed like a seal and expect that a shark wouldn't come for you. I mean, but you'll go into this haunted location and go, oh, are there any demons here? I'm going to kick your ass. And then you think like it's not going to come at you.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think it's, and I noticed that there's more and more of these people out there going around ghost hunting, and they just think it's like this everyday thing, like it's no big deal. And I'm like, it is a big deal. And I think nowadays there's so much, I think there's more out there than there used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And people have no idea that these things monsters are real. It's a fact. And people just think, oh, it's only human spirits. There's no such thing as these monsters. And
right, exactly.
That is not true. And there's so much out there that we just don't understand. And they need to know that these things are older than us. They've been around longer than us. And they just don't understand, and they don't know how to deal with it.
Well, I think, Sheena, just as there's good and evil in the world of men, I think that good and evil carries over into the spirit world as well.
I think it starts in the spirit world.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the incident that happened with Jeff Wheatcraft in the attic of San Pedro was a near miss. I mean, he could have very well strangled up there in that attic if Gary Boehm had not been up there and bend that nail down and get him off of that. And I think it's just a matter of time. I think I've told Melodie this before as many cases as people going out investigating today, it's only a matter of time before something really dire happens out there in the world of ghost hunting. Because I saw how easily Jeff could have been killed. And I'll never forget when I was filming that I was below the attic and I'm filming. I didn't really know what had happened at that point until Jeff comes out of the attic, that crawl space. He's got that cord wrapped around his neck. He's got the burn marks in his neck. And, I don't know. It's in my book. I didn't talk about too much about this, but it also went through me that night. Just right after that, I was holding the camera and a force went through me and I started blacking out and I started losing consciousness. But luckily I came out of that fugue state very quickly. I was able to get back on my feet and still keep filming. If you look at the Unknown Encounter video, which features that, you can see there's a section here where you can see I'm starting to go down with the camera and they're wondering what's going on. And it was just a very quick thing that happened. But Jeff could very well have been murdered by the spirit in that attic on September 4th, 1989.
Absolutely. And you have to be careful. All these people are like, oh, I'm a seasoned investigator. Look, let's look at the case of Steve Irwin, right? I mean, that man spent his life with his mouth in a crocodile head and a slip of a stingray. And it was done. Yeah. So you have to be careful. It's not a walk in the park to go in these places. And everybody who says, and I talk about this on shows with people all the time, and I'm sure, Melodie, you will certainly agree. People that say, oh, yeah, I want to go in this place because I want to see a demon. No, you don't ever want to see a demon.
No.
You in your life want to never encounter anything demonic or dark. And if you have not, be thankful that you did. I always tell people, look, I'm a 56-year-old woman who sleeps with a light and the TV on. You don't want, because I'm still terrified of a house that I lived in when I was 11. You don't want to be that person. You want to be a person who is not. And even now, I work with these YouTube influencers who are in their early 20s and mid 20s, and they're wonderful. But I got to tell you, we spend a night in a haunted house and I got to sleep for 3 days. I mean, it takes it out of you. Even after I was at your place, the next couple of days, I was like, why am I so tired? And I'm like, oh, I know, because of ghosts, because ... ghosts. And I'm a person who sometimes I do 10 readings or cleanses with clients in a day, and I feel high as a kite. Like, doing spiritual work energizes me, but paranormal stuff is different, and it drains you. And Melodie, I don't know how you get up every day and go to work because you must be exhausted.
And you just reminded me, what was it? The other day, it felt like there was like 4 people sitting on me. And it literally felt like 4 people were sitting on top of me. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was just like so weighted down. And I was like, why am I so exhausted? Yeah. And I just, my little secret is they have these energy shot drinks. And I know they're horrible for people. It's caffeine, it's horrible, it's not good for you. But I have to have something in order to, get motivated, get through the day. And Barry's like, that's not good for you. And I go, I know, but what am I supposed to do? If I don't have something, I have to survive somehow. And it's not like I'm taking a drug. It's not a drug. It's just caffeine. So it's that 5-hour energy shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I take half of it in the morning, and then at around 11:30, I take the other half, just so I can get up and get motivated and do stuff. Because otherwise, these things just drain me. And it does. It feels like 4 people sitting on me.
Yeah, I have to give myself permission after I'm in a house. There's a super haunted house here in Huntington Beach where I grew up, and that's sort of the clubhouse that these girls go to and do our thing. And I have to tell myself, look, if I'm going to be at the Newland house on Wednesday night, I got to know I'm probably going to sleep 12 hours the next day and give myself the permission to do it. And I'm somebody who always wants to be up and doing things.
Yeah.
And I have to remind myself, you were in a compromising place. Your spiritual immune system has been compromised. You need to sleep it off and recharge and allow yourself for the next couple days just to do whatever you need to do and take care of yourself. Sometimes when I deal with a client, every once in a while I have a client who's extremely draining. And when I'm done with them, I'll get in my car and I drive up and down PCH because I live a quarter mile from the beach. Mm-hmm. And I just look at the ocean at night and I look at the moon and I listen to a little nice soft 1970s music and I let myself recharge. Sometimes I sing in the car and I recharge my battery so I'm ready for the next one. Because this work, spiritual work, can drain you, and it's a real thing. And I deal with all this all the time. Melodie deals with it all the time. Barry deals with it all the time. If you're at home and you're new to this, and you're going to go to like the Queen Mary and stay in the haunted room, please, first of all, please don't. Secondly, if you insist, please protect yourself.
Yeah.
Because most of the seasoned professional investigators that I know are sick a lot of the time. And that's why I don't do it full time, because I don't always want to be drained all the time, because I have to have my energy to work with living people that need me. I don't have all day long to let a bunch of ghosts drain me. I'm like, oh, I can't take clients for 2 weeks. The ghosts got me. You can't. Please protect. There are so many ways to protect yourself. When I work with the girls, Mackie and Amanda, I always say I give my number out throughout all our lives. And I say, text me if you want the white light protection prayer. Text me and I'll give you it, because I figure right now, if you're watching, 818-437-0886, text me and I'll give you the white light protection prayer. Because, as many of those as I can give out, hopefully people are saying them and it's helping, because that was the only thing that helped us growing up in that house. Was my mom and I started both. My mom wandered into some metaphysical store, God knows in the 70s, there probably was one in Maryland and she found it. And they taught her about white light protection prayer. And that's what saved us in that house. So just protect yourself. Yeah. Does that work at all for you? Does that help, Melodie, to sort of stave it off?
I think about the white light and I try it, it helps for a little bit. I do the best that I can. That's all I can say, but it just, that I do the energy drink and the shot in the morning, but then I have a hard time sleeping at night. So
Yeah.
I have this double standard of, trying to get up in the morning and then being drained at night as well.
Yeah.
I think, it's not like, I lose my sleep and I lose my energy as well to get up and do things during the day. Because Barry's like, oh, you'll sleep well tonight, and I'm like,
Right. Yeah.
why do you say that? Because
I'm hoping.
he hopes I'm going to sleep well, and I'm like, that's not going to happen.
but Sheena, there is something that came to mind when you're talking about it draining you and not being protected. At the tail end, at the culmination almost of the San Pedro case, she had moved up. The woman who had been haunted in San Pedro had moved up to Weldon, to a trailer home, and she was by herself in the trailer home. And Jeff and I came up there on April 13th, 1990, to investigate it, because she called me, said the thing had followed her. All these things are going on.
Sure.
Well, lo and behold, I know we're not supposed to do this without being very, very seriously protected, but I didn't know a lot about Ouija boards at that time. She had a Ouija board. She said it was coming through, it was communicating. Well, we wanted to see that, Jeff and I. And if anybody was ever a skeptic, they would not have been a skeptic after we tried that Ouija board. And we tried to get it on camera. Everybody said, well, why didn't you get it on camera? Well, the ghost, like it did in the attic in San Pedro, it neutralized our camera equipment that night. And we did see a lot. There was a babysitter named Tina Lawler there present, Jackie. She wrote down everything that it said. It communicated beautifully, told us all kinds of cryptic messages about it being held underwater in Pedro Bay. But the most amazing thing was that it actually levitated Jeff. It said, he reminds me of my killer. After that, it levitated him and threw him into the trailer wall with incredible force and velocity that he was knocked out for a brief period of time. But getting back to that idea of probably not protecting ourselves and just kind of plunging into this Ouija board session, Jeff and I both talked about it after that whole thing was over with. For a week or two after that, he and I both felt totally drained from that experience. Almost like, obviously we were frightened when we saw all these things going on. Their candles were blowing out of their own volition. The table was shaking and all these things were going on. It was like a Disneyland of the dead. It was so amazing that maybe it was feeding on our fear, and that amazing suction or energy that it took from our body affected us for about a week and a half to 2 weeks, I'd say.
Oh, I bet. Oh, yeah. That's why I tell people, be very careful if you're going to do spirit boards. As a matter of fact, I think there are 2 people out there right now that are sending me their spirit boards that they can't handle. I'm like, I will keep them here and I will protect them. I will take your haunted dolls and I will protect them. I'm becoming like a mini John Zaffis now. I'm like, oh, God. Well, because this house is already so charged.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I have to ward it so much with salt lamps and selenite and brooms and tourmaline that it's become an extremely protected place. This house, like I always say, out of the frying pan to the fire, right? We moved from the Maryland hellhole into the Indian burial ground house. And I always swore that I wouldn't live in this house because it was so active. But then I came here to fix it up, to rent it, and fell in love with it and stayed. And I love that my mom's energy is here. Like, I do my videos, like right now, my camera's on my mom's desk. Like, I'm sitting at her desk right now.
Right.
And I love that. But what comes with it is that the cat and I have to stay warded all the time.
Yeah.
Or there's going to be activity. So because it's become such a safe place, it's become a safe place for haunted objects. I don't know how. I have a little cross that somebody said was evil. That's in my friend took an old Altoids box and made like a chest out of it by molding it with a blowtorch.
Oh my
and
gosh.
So it's full of salt and this cross. And then I have a curio cabinet over here. And it's like the top part is 4 shelves. And there's 1 shelf on the bottom that has separate doors. And
Wow.
that's where my 4 boys are, my haunted dolls. They're all boy spirits, believe it or not.
Yes.
And selenite towers and black tourmaline in there with them. So we don't know where we're going to put the spirit boards when they come. but somebody has to protect the world from this stuff. Do not be using something. If you're like, oh, I bought this Ouija board and now I feel like I'm going to throw up every day. Well, gee, I wonder what's causing the problem.
Oh,
Mary, how do you do with all of the activity happening in your house, in your bed, with your partner? I mean, do you have to protect yourself now to live in your own house?
I do really. I do mentally. I do a lot of mental exercises with the white light, like she was talking about. I do that, and I do pray every night, just about every night. Not every night, but I do pray most nights internally. I believe in prayer by a long shot. I believe it's very important.
Yes.
And the thing about this haunting is different than the normal poltergeist case. Is that it's a low level. It's not like moving things around constantly. Although the other night, and this is where she has this telepathic communication with it. She can hear the voices that go directly into her brain cells. She knows what they're saying. But I did hear voices up in the bedroom the other night it was only for about 3 or 4 seconds. And I told her it sounded like 3 men talking, but I could never make out what they said. But as far as being attacked myself, I've never been attacked here.
you got scratched.
I did get scratched once briefly, and I feel vibrate the couch. We did hear a lot of strange noises here a lot. We heard footsteps coming up and down.
You got attacked in bed one time.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Oh, you got a little sleep paralysis, something attack?
Well,
He did get sexually attacked in bed one time.
Oh.
And I said to him, because I saw the bedding moved in that area, and I said, it wasn't that I was happy about it. I was just like, oh, they got you.
I wasn't aware. I was asleep.
It wasn't that it was a joy thing.
Right.
It was just kind of like, oh, now you know what it's like,
Right.
Right. Because it's usually all about me, but I was just that one time I was like, oh, now it was your turn,
Yeah, I was asleep. I didn't feel a thing.
Yeah. And then on the couch, he felt the vibration
On the couch sometimes.
underneath the cushion.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, now you're feeling it, It was just that awe moment of, oh, now you get to feel what I'm going through.
However, Sheena, I got to tell you, maybe there's a few things like that have happened, but it's rare in my case. But I will say that I have a good friend, Stephen Robin. He works with me all the time. He's a great guy. He's a believer, not a total. I mean, he's skeptical of a lot of things, but he's basically a believer. He believes in the San Pedro case because he helped me edit that show when we did it. He was over here last year, I believe it was, or a little over a year ago. And he was working out in my van. He was pulling some things out of the van. He was crouched down in the van. It's a big van. I have the full passenger, Chevy passenger van where I have equipment and stuff. And something propelled it into, like a force came out of nowhere and pushed him back with a great force. And it caused him to slice his finger open, as part of his hand open, really, I guess.
His finger on the door.
On the door, there was a metal part on the inner part of the rear door.
Yeah.
He had to go to the hospital. And there was another time when he was in the bathroom and one of her dental picks attacked him in there and pierced his finger. And so we've had a couple of little things like that. So
he got pushed down the steps into his garage.
Your house is like a fun house. You're not even safe from the dental picks.
It really is like a Disneyland of the dead, like I mentioned.
Oh,
Jesus.
But Sheena, the other night, and I haven't been really paying much attention to it, but the other night on the monitor, and we've gotten this before, but it's been a long time. Yeah. I looked and I was like, Barry, there's that. We got this light anomaly.
Yeah, there are light anomalies outside.
But this one light anomaly, it looks like, the lightsaber from Star Wars.
Oh yeah.
It goes this,
like
this
a rod.
Uh-huh. Yes. And it like dances through the trees. And it was dancing through the trees, and I was like, there's that light anomaly again that looks like the savior for the lightsaber from Star Wars. And Barry's like, oh, and we're watching it, and then all of a sudden,
a big burst of light.
There
Like
on another side,
right out of the bushes. It looked like.
Right on top of the bushes.
Right out of the bushes, yeah.
This light appeared, then disappeared, then appeared and disappeared. I'm like, whoa, what is that? And he was talking to someone on the phone, but I filmed it with my phone. I grabbed my phone and I'm videotaping it. I'm like, here's that lightsaber again from Star Wars, you know?
Yeah. There's
but
all
that
kinds
bright
of
light was
shows
like the
trying to
size of a
figure out
softball.
what the rods are, right? Because people see the rods.
Yeah.
But you guys also have that other weird thing that looks like a fish skeleton.
Yeah. It's
what is that?
I don't know.
It's like it's got like spindly things. It looks just like a fish skeleton to me.
Yeah. And the rods are all flying around with the,
Yeah,
you know, in the yard. And I'm just
there's
like,
a lot of activity. Well, that neighborhood is haunted anyhow. It's a haunted neighborhood.
But-
then Haunted Melodie came to live in the haunted neighborhood. And now it's like the perfect recipe for haunting. So did anything good or bad happen after I was there, kind of getting in their business? Because I tried to like white light protect it all when I left, but sometimes they don't like an outsider coming in and ask.
It seemed like it's kind of quiet after.
Oh,
she
good.
left.
All right.
it was
good.
a little bit quiet. Yeah.
Good.
It was a little bit quiet.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Good.
But a couple nights ago, I had a hard time sleeping. And then, and I haven't been sleeping well. And I was just like, man, what's going on here? And then Barry gets this, you know, the neighborhood watch thing where you can get on their email and stuff.
Sure.
He gets this message that someone mysteriously died in the neighborhood.
Coming to your house with
and
John
I was
John.
just like, he probably came over here.
Yeah.
because I was like, I haven't been sleeping well lately. And I was like, man, what is going on? You know? And it was a crescent moon. You know, it was a crescent moon that came out recently.
Sure, yeah.
And this strange light thing. And I was like, what is going on here? So maybe that's what that was all about. I don't know, you know?
Yeah.
But Sheena, you brought up a good point. You talk about that skeletal thing. That's one of the most amazing pieces of video that Melodie captured on her cell phone, but it was not a picture. It was that live view function where you can get 2 seconds of video. And I slowed it down.
Pink thing.
A pink thing. It looked like a pink form of energy, but it looks like a skeletal spine or something mixed in with that. It lit up the whole.
Not a human spine, like a fish spine.
Yeah.
Something.
Something like that.
Yeah. But
really weird.
That's one of the entity with the female voice, I believe, that's always like on my chest.
Yeah.
Because she shows up. She's not female in gender, but just female in voice. She shows up pink all the time. And I'm like, that's her. That has to be her, because why else would it be right in front of my camera?
And I remember we showed Sheena some of the clips of what are the things that have been going on out here. What was your impression, Sheena, of when you saw the video clips of the actual phenomena that we've been able to capture?
I just think the house is extremely haunted. Just from psychically tapping into it, the neighborhood is haunted. You've got 2 roaming spirits from the neighborhood that died in the neighborhood, 2 old guys that won't go away. And then on top of it, Melodie has brought with her these 3 tricksters that are really like just little bastards. And so it's haunted, energetic neighborhood plus neighborhood ghosts plus these little demonic things that she brought. So it's like a recipe for disaster. Plus, you guys are always filming, and they're like, "Oh, look, the cameras are always on us." It's like toddlers and tiaras with little demons. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they want to get on the camera because they want attention. So yeah, I mean, I think you have the makings of a really intense documentary.
Yes,
And,
I'm just finishing up, Sheena, a great show I'm doing on UFOs. I've also been involved in that research for many, many years. Ever since I've been a teenager, I've been into that stuff from Ohio. There were a lot of things going on in Ohio back then, but I've talking about one of the main things on the UFO story that a lot of people know about the case. If you've seen Fire in the Sky, the motion picture,
Yes, sure.
Travis Walton case, and I had interviewed him 14 years ago. Him, Mike Rogers, his crew boss, and one of the witnesses, Ken Peterson, went to Snowflake, Arizona, and did the interviews. He was fascinating, and I'm a total believer in that case because it happened in front of 6 witnesses that eventually all passed polygraphs. And
Wow. Yes.
you just can't make this stuff up, and it's just a fascinating case. So that's one of the things that's in there. And also the other thing that's amazing is a lot of people have forgotten a lot of the cases that have been kind of lost in time. There was the 2 fishermen we talk about in the new documentary down in Pascagoula, Mississippi. Does that ring a bell? 1973.
Okay. No.
There was a huge flap of UFO flap in 1973. And it culminated with a lot of, there were a lot of sightings that started in the north, moved all through the north into the south. In a little place called Pascagoula, Mississippi, there were 2 fishermen. Were doing a little night fishing. They both worked in a boat on one of the boat yards there. Where they make ships, and they were night shift. One guy was very young; he was 18. His name was Calvin Parker. He's passed away recently. And then Charles Hickson was the older gentleman, and they were both abducted by a blue light. It was a blue light that came behind them, and they were floated into this craft. And anyway, it's an amazing story because the sheriff down there, Mr. Diamond, Sheriff Diamond, had secretly, when they were released, and fortunately they were safe, and when they told their story, he took them into his private office and secretly tape recorded them, and let the tape recorder, record as they were talking to themselves. And they were so terrified. I know Calvin, the younger guy, was almost crawling the walls. He was that petrified by what had happened. But it's an amazing story. So I'm using some of the more extreme, talking about some of the more extreme cases of abduction, and as well as some of the great sightings, as well as the Phoenix Lights, who I knew Dr. Lynn Katai, who took a lot of the pictures and videotapes of the Phoenix Lights, as well as many others. So
there's so much going on, and I'm so sorry we're out of time, but Barry, next time you come, we should just talk about ufology. I would love that.
Absolutely.
I did a paranormal documentary 2 summers ago. I was asked to be a guest, and out in Joshua Tree, and man, you can really see them out there. What a fascinating evening that was. It was fantastic. Oh, yeah. Where can people find you both online? And let's figure out what's our next adventure together. I love that.
Yeah, well, I have a website for my video business. It's called Barry Conrad, www.barryconrad.net. And Melodie is...
Facebook, it's Melodie Brookman. Facebook.
I also have a Facebook. Just type in my name, Barry Conrad.
Yeah. Send her names.
So and I'm always interested in hearing other people's stories as well. And if there's any local in the general area, I'd love to come out and investigate and see what we can get there too on document
we'll have to get you down here to the Newland house to check it out.
I love it.
Oh yeah, that'd
Pretty
be great.
crazy. We should plan a night. That would be fun.
Oh yeah.
Keep us posted.
Oh, and you're going to be at the Paracon with us.
I sure am at the yes, and in Ventura on the 7th and 8th of June, right?
The very haunted Majestic Theater for over 100 ghosts. You're going to be
So
supercharged.
awesome. I can't wait to see you there. I'm bringing the cat. I mean, not to the convention, but he'll be
Yeah.
there. If you missed any of those links, you can find me at sheenametalspiritual.com, or you can send me a text message and get to know me better, 818-437-0886. And I'm everywhere on social media at Sheena Metal. Thanks to Parapod TV for hosting us, and their wonderful owner and creator, Tony Sweet. Thank you to Melodie Brookman and Barry Conrad, my friends, for being here with me today. So awesome. And my wonderful engineer and producer, Emery, you are the wind beneath my wings. Until I see you next time, seek peace, live in love, lead with kindness, embrace unity, always work to raise your vibration, and know that you are love and you are loved, and you're so loved by me. I'm Sheena Metal. This is the Sheena Metal Experience. Stay beautiful. I'll see you next week.